The 14th year of Chenghua. Chapter 79. I refuse. At daybreak on the next day, Patriarch He sent someone to invite Tang Fan and Tang Yu over, the place of their discussion being the middle hall of the He family's primary courtyard. Patriarch He and Matriarch He were seated at the head seats, while 2 rows of chairs were arranged below them, separated out for Tang Fan, Tang Yu, and He Lin. The Tang siblings sat on one side while He Lin sat on the other. The rift between them was clearly defined. No one had a great-looking expression. He Lin's face was overcast, some traces of a hangover still on his face. Despite sitting here, he never looked at Tang Yu. Tang Yu's expression was placid, as if she didn't even notice that He Lin existed. Her head was slightly bowed, yet her line of sight was down to the overlapped hands on her lower abdomen. After the incident in the Wei residence, as well as the ruckus that He Lin had done at the entrance of the bamboo courtyard, He Ying and Lady Su's spirits weren't that great, either. The Wei family were inconsequential. Even though they had deaths in the family, they were just the He family's in-laws, and ultimately partitioned a layer away from them. This son of his He Lin, however, gave He Ying a headache. Though the parents each had their own favorites amongst their 3 sons, they had never treated any of them particularly unfairly on account of their consciences. It was simply that He Lin himself had made no progress in life, failing the tests repeatedly over these years without one accomplishment to himself and beginning to blame everyone but himself for it. He had even blamed his parents for even getting him a wife that had no birth family to rely on, saying to outsiders more than once that if he had gotten one that was from an official's family like their eldest or one from a wealthy family like the 3rd son, she would have at least been able to give her husband some aid. He Ying distinctly remembered that when Lady Wei had just married into the He family, He Lin had believed that as a merchant's daughter, her status was unpresentable, while Tang Yu, in contrast, was well-bred and thus completely satisfactory. Alas, time had passed and the satisfaction of the past had become the present's dissatisfaction. No matter what, this was nothing other than a failure of He Lin's own self, but he refused to admit that, forever finding the cause in others. In addition to that was last night's incident. He Ying was entirely disappointed in the son of his uncle. Tang Fan was the first to speak. As I recall, before my sister entered the He family's door, our Tang elders had already passed. We siblings thought that she wouldn't be able to claim connections to you all, and expected the engagement to be dropped, only for you to stand your ground against the opinions of the public by persevering with fulfilling the promise you made on that day. That sort of honor is something I admire to this day. He Ying shook his head. Since the betrothal had already been drawn up, it deserved to be fulfilled. People that don't keep their word have no standing. The He family only did what should have been done, and your praise is something this old man doesn't deserve. You do indeed deserve it, Tang Fan answered mildly. You must know that human relationships change between hot and cold, the ways of society flipping between fire and ice. In this day and age, people of the world only know how to adhere themselves to that fire. How many know how to stand by their promises? My sister and I are extremely grateful to your actions, but this nephew has something that I'm unclear on. I would like to ask for the wisdom of the 2 of you as our elders. He Ying knew what he probably wanted to say but had no choice but to answer. Do ask, good nephew. I dare then, uncle and aunt, after my sister married into the He family, has she ever acted in violation of womanly virtues? He Ying was now completely clear on what he wanted to say, yet still had to answer. No. In this past decade, my brother-in-law has taken the test and failed repeatedly, becoming moody, suffering jeers and nasty looks. Not only did she not disdain him, but she instead treated him the same as she always had, gentle and considerate. Is that not true? He never looked at He Lin, but even the latter couldn't say sleepy words while wide awake, remaining silent. He Ying sighed. It's true. Our eldest's wife went to another locale with him and isn't before us, while our 3rd son's wife only came later. In the years prior to that, thanks to our 2nd son's wife's virtuousness and filial piety, She attended to us parents and birthed Qilang. She has been meritorious to the He family. Tang Fan nodded. Thank you for your impartial words, uncle. They mean that the wrongs my sister has suffered over the years have not been in vain. Last night, my brother-in-law said that he wants to divorce her. What do you think about that, uncle? That was nonsense, my stupid son said after drinking. How could it be taken seriously? He Ying answered without a thought. The other shook his head. Isn't it actually that the truth is always spat out after drinking? To divorce a wife in our great Ming, the female party must have committed one of the 7 grounds for divorce: not being filial to parents, having no heirs, being adulterous, being jealous, having contagious disease, talking too much, or thieving. I dare ask you, brother-in-law, which of those has she committed? He Lin's eyes were shot red. No mistake should be made, though he wasn't crying, he was hungover. He also didn't appear to feel any sort of shame towards his words and actions from last night despite his sobriety, instead sneering. Your sister has been married into the He family for years, but how many times have you visited? Now that you've got the Chenghua backing you up, you came up to the door to show off your might. Even like that, what's between her and I isn't for you to stick your nose into. What kind of thing even are you? My brother isn't a thing, he's a person. You're the only one that isn't anything. Upon hearing He Lin's scolding, Tang Yu hadn't been able to hold back anymore, snatching the conversation before Tang Fan could speak. She was typically poised, never had there been a time where she became red-faced in rage, and she had endured everything silently, even if she was being treated coldly by her husband. The He family had never seen her when she was furious, and all of them, He Lin included, were stunned for a minute. As Tang Fan saw it, this was the sister he was familiar with. Before getting married, the eldest miss of the Tang family had been this lively. After marrying into the He family, being a wife was ultimately different from being a daughter, so she had to conceal all of her sharp edges. It was only today that she could no longer withstand it, returning to her original feistiness. Tang Fan knew that if he hadn't shown up, she would have had to keep enduring this for who knew how long. As soon as he thought such, his heart was drowned with self-reproach. Her expression was frosty. Once she had shed the mask she had always had in front of people, she became slightly unfamiliar in the eyes of the He family. The Tang family was strict in its traditions and taught its daughters from the 4 books for women ever since their childhoods. I can't claim to be perfect, but I've read each and every one of the admonishments for women until I knew them by heart. In the He residence, I performed my duty from dawn till dusk, served my in-laws, attended to my husband, and birthed a child. I dared not slack for even one day. Even though He Lin didn't pass into being a provincial honorate, I never thought that he was completely useless. That's because, from how I see it, a man's goodness doesn't depend on how big of an official he is. It depends on whether or not he's broad-minded and has upstanding conduct. From the very beginning of when I married him, I didn't expect him to give me any amount of glory, only wholeheartedly wishing to spend life with him nicely. Liar! He Lin growled. You never thought that at all. You hate that I'm useless and can't add any shine to your reputation. You hate that I won't make you the wife of a provincial honorate like the 3rd son does. She scoffed at him. Is being the wife of a provincial honorate that great? I'm the sister of a palace honorate. Tang Fan nearly couldn't resist smiling, quickly smoothing his facial expression into a blank one. Tang Yu's fighting prowess was not only making him look at her in a whole new light, but made the He family do so as well. Father, mother, you've seen as much as well. I know myself that I've already done all I can, yet the second young master still completely misreads me. He insists upon saying that I hate him, and he treats me with all sorts of coldness. From whence can I defend this? When I wedded, I had no support because my elders had died, but Runking cherished me, using nearly all of his possessions as dowry for me to enter into the He family. Over these years, the He family set aside for our second branch an allowance of 30 monthly taels and 4 annual sets of clothes. That had originally been enough, but because of the second master expenses when going out to visit friends, throwing dinner parties, and buying references, he spends more than half month's worth at times. I had some savings on my end. As an official's family, the He family have dinner parties every once in a while, and as its daughter-in-law, I absolutely must not wear those clothes more than once when I leave the house, thus causing the He family to lose face that requires expenses, too. Adding on to that is Xianghe's reading and writing materials, where I need to buy inks, sticks and stones. Frankly speaking, the 30 taels that the He family give are not enough to use, so I've had no choice but to use my dowry as a supplement. Lady Su was a little displeased and had to speak up. We give the same allowance to the families of the eldest young master and the third young master, and they never complained before. Tang Yu laughed. Everyone knows that Zhejiang is affluent. The eldest young master is the Jiaxing's magistrate, so those 30 taels are nothing to him at all. Father used to be a high official, he must know that my words are true. As for our younger siblings, setting aside the fact that she's the daughter of a wealthy family, judging from your favor towards the third son, I expect that you give him private supplements, so as not to cause them to feel wronged. She saw that Lady Su's face had gone ugly, but she didn't relent on her words. Mother, these statements are not me blaming you, they are just assertions of fact. Over these years, I have used my dowry to subsidize the second branch's finances. I have no complaints, as a husband and wife are one unit, and that is how it should be. However, just because that is how it should be doesn't mean I will let others completely ignore my investment, or even be ungrateful, abandoning me like worn-out shoes. Father, Mother, tell me, does that make sense to you? Tang Fan couldn't help but laud his sister. The other 3 people in the hall had different expressions. He Ying and Lady Su still had some dignity and inevitably found it hard to take getting called out like this, but He Lin wasn't thinking the same at all, sneering. You talked for so long just to exonerate yourself. If you really were perfectly happy to do all this, you wouldn't have made such a clear mental list of everything. Tang Yu had gone cold towards this man, and sneered right back without mercy. What of it? You can't even pass into being a provincial honorate. All day long, you lose your mind in your room, shutting your door and saying that no one in the family values you. Since you're so bold, go find a way to support yourself. Why even need to take the 30 taels your parents give you? Why, you wench? He Lin went pale with anger at once, unable to say more. She paid him no attention, continuing to speak to He Ying and Lady Su. I had thought that when Xianghe grew up fully and I was considered as not having failed to live up to the expectations you had for me, there would be no need for me to have somebody divorce me then, as I would ask to leave the hall myself. However, you both have witnessed with your own eyes that he, as a father, can be so ruthless to his own son for no rhyme or reason. Had Runking not come in time, how badly would Xianghe have been beaten? You were present yesterday, Mother and Father. Please speak some justice for Xianghe and myself. He Ying coughed lightly. Ganyu's act was indeed excessive. I scolded him harshly yesterday, too. I'm afraid that excessive doesn't describe it enough, Tang Yu answered placidly. It would have been fine if he only hit me then, but if Xianghe was hit and something terrible happened to him, I wouldn't have been able to live. I would have hung myself right here, letting the world have a good look at how heartless He Lin is. He Lin had his own justification, of course. Everyone was suspecting Xianghe and he wasn't saying anything. If I didn't beat him, how could I have cleared away his suspicion? How could I have maintained the He family's reputation? The He family's reputation relies on a child being beaten. Tang Yu shot back. As Xianghe's father, you're no bystander. Why do you not understand his nature? Why did Runking not need to ask Xianghe anything to ascertain the truth? He Lin's shame turned to rage. All that talk, and you just hate that I'm not as capable as your little brother. Tang Fan finally understood why his sister was completely disappointed in her husband. The man was beyond reason. Ever since his path of the imperial exams had been obstructed, it became the only thing left that filled his heart and eyes, practically becoming his obsession. Inferiority led to sensitivity, and sensitivity led to irritability, hence why, no matter what anyone else said, he could drag it into relating to this. For all these years, from how gentle-natured Tang Yu was, she had probably comforted and tried to communicate with him plenty of times. If there was even a bit of a hope for turnaround right now, however, she wouldn't have been how she was now, wanting nothing more than to take Xianghe with her to leave the He family. He Lin was completely submerged in his own little world. It had long become difficult for him to free himself from it. He Ying knew that having a son like this was too shameful. Before Tang Yu could speak to Tang Fan, he slapped his armrest hard, saying "Shut up," then turned to the Tang siblings. "Second young lady, what are you getting at? If you have an idea, there's no harm in stating it. If we have the power to assist, we will naturally handle things for you." He knew that Tang Yu had said this much, and so gravely, not only to air her wrongs. The issue of the second branch not having enough allowance to use was something he had heard a little about before, but first of all, his 3 sons were all the same on the surface, none owed, nor favored. Even if any of them had difficulty getting by in life or were wealthy, that would rely on their own capabilities. Second of all, power over the inner residence was within Lady Su's hands. As her husband, he wanted to give her that face, and couldn't rashly get involved. All 3 sons had been born from her anyways, so she wouldn't treat them unfairly. Hence, he had never asked. Tang Yu understood as much, so she had never complained before. Now that a decision had already been made, though, and everyone was in open discussions, it had been necessary for her to lay things out piece by piece, lest others believe her to be making trouble for no reason. As soon as she heard that question, she looked at Tang Fan. The two had already agreed that he would step forth to take care of this. "My brother-in-law said earlier that he was going to divorce my sister," he said. "However, she has not only not violated any of the 7 grounds for divorce but also under the provision of has no birth family to return to under the 3 stays. He can't divorce her, according to standards. With things how they are now, even if they barely manage to stay together, they likely wouldn't have a good life. Since he feels that she lacks virtue, my sister is willing to relinquish her status as his first wife to let him take another woman, someone he found more virtuous." With how intelligent the patriarch was, he quickly understood. "You wish for their marriage to be annulled?" Tang Fan nodded. "Yes, annulment. And also take Xianghe with her." The He family all looked shocked. Taking into consideration how the discussion has gone so far, everyone had already anticipated that they would propose an annulment, but they had an objection towards where Xianghe would be. "That's impossible," He Ying said automatically. "Xianghe is a descendant of the He family, so he should remain with the He family. There is no reason for any woman to take children with her in an annulment." Seeing that the Tang siblings' faces were unchanged, he had to warm up his tone to persuade them. "Runking, things getting messed up to this extent is not what we want. Luckily, it's not too late, and there's still room for redemption. Regardless of whether a woman can remarry or not after an annulment, she will suffer people's disdain everywhere, which is likely not a scenario you wish to see. Moreover, the second young lady is not one to abandon Xianghe. Don't interfere with this affair and just allow the couple to talk it out. What sense is there in you urging your sister and her husband to separate?" Tang Fan sighed. "Uncle, I only have respect towards you and wouldn't normally have such an intent, but with things as they are now, why trouble yourself with forcing things? It doesn't matter whether annulment happens or not, as my sister will always be my sister. If it won't be easy for her to remarry, I'll just support her all her life. As for Xianghe, we aren't trying to make things deliberately difficult, but just imagine, he still almost got beaten badly with my sister around, so if she isn't around anymore, how much worse will it be? You may treasure your grandchildren, but you can't keep an eye on them every single day. It's best for children to grow up in the presence of their mothers. We aren't asking for Xianghe to change his surname. He'll be a descendant of the He family no matter what, he will simply live with his mother. But if that spread around outside, wouldn't the He family no longer have any face? Xianghe shook his head, predictably unwilling. Seeing that the Tang siblings had expressions of determination, he then mumbled to himself for a bit, and conceded a step. How about this? Annulment is doable, but Xianghe must remain in the He household. However, as soon as he finished, Lin stood up with a bang, throwing sentences out. I refuse. I'll only divorce you. Don't even think about annulment. Then, he left without a care. The patriarch shouted several "stop" from behind him, yet he never turned his head. Despite his typically sullen temperament, he had always been obedient to his parents. His current behavior made Patriarch He's nose scrunch in anger. This breakdown of negotiations had been predicted as such, too. Tang Fan had no belief that the He family would immediately agree to his conditions in the first place. In their view, annulment was just that. Their daughter-in-law was ultimately an outsider, while their grandson belonged to their family. The He family had more than just one grandson, but just as the patriarch had said, if they let Tang Yu take He Cheng, others would believe that the He family couldn't even make one grandson stay with them. Such were the feelings of the world, which humans did not have the power to alter. It was better to put forth terms that another party wouldn't accept in the first breath, than slowly raise the stakes higher. That way, there would be a much greater certainty that one's goal could be achieved. From the very beginning, their ultimate aim was not annulment but separate residency. This was another method that differed from annulment and divorce. In this day and age, setting aside how difficult it was to annul a marriage, if a wife's birth family was influential, a husband wanting a divorce wouldn't be able to get one. Lin, for example, might have been able to divorce Tang Yu if Tang Fan didn't exist, but since Tang Fan was around, he couldn't even think about it, and even if he did, the patriarch wouldn't let him. For that reason, what he had just said in the reception hall had been pure anger. No matter how little he actually knew about such matters, he certainly knew that since Tang Yu now had her brother's backing, she wasn't someone the He family could possibly bully. Yet, in terms of annulment, it was as the patriarch had described. People were unfair to women. What one would go through after annulment was certainly more than just nasty looks. Thus, a compromise to this would be separate residency. To say it plainly, the husband and wife would live separately, but since there was no official annulment, it could be said to the outside world that the woman's health was weak, so she had returned to her birth family for recuperation or such excuses. Both sides had a justification, and the man's ego was preserved, which saved a lot of troubles. Within larger families, if a couple didn't have a harmonious relationship, while the woman had her birth family's support and refused to just deal with it, this was the method that would be brought up. Tang Fan had seen it before in the capital, but Xianghe County was a tiny area, where it was relatively unseen. When it came to the woman, this would make it so that the marriage connection was not broken off and Tang Yu would not be able to remarry. That was a disadvantage. However, Tang Fan had discussed with her ahead of time, and she had expressed that she had absolutely no intention of remarrying, merely wanting to raise He Cheng to adulthood and pass her own version of a peaceful life. As that was so, living separately became the best option. The reason why he hadn't proposed it from the start was that he feared that the He family would abruptly not accept it. Since he had brought up annulment first, by the time they slowly came to face reality, throwing out this method thereafter would go a lot smoother. On the premise that Lin would agree and not get in the way, of course. After coming out of Patriarch He's place, Tang Yu was still a little unhappy. In the end, married couples were won, and this plight was something no one wanted to see. Had it not been too difficult to live like this, she wouldn't have wanted to do things like this as well. Her overnight change had, in reality been completely because of Tang Fan, but he wouldn't be in Xianghe County forever. Once he left, she would lose her support again and be all the more upset by her lonesome in the He family. That was something she understood well, so she need to be crueler and use this opportunity to sever herself away completely, preventing future mishaps. I just hope that Xianghe doesn't blame me when he grows up, she sighed. Tang Fan smiled. He's so thoughtful and has already grown into a good boy. Everything you've done is for his sake. He'll certainly be able to forgive it. She nodded distractedly. Don't look so dismayed, my dear sister, he comforted. If Xianghe sees you, he might think something happened. The boy has a meticulous and sharp mind, there'll be a chance for him to temper himself someday. She nodded again. I've been neglecting him. It's impossible that he hasn't felt terrible from seeing his father like that every day. You're taking responsibility onto yourself again. If that's the case, then I think father's blame for this is much greater. Why did he promise you to a man like He Lin in the first place? Don't say such things, she said, annoyed. How can you blame father? He wouldn't have been able to see that far ahead into the future. Tang Fan beamed. And isn't that right? Our parents beneath the 9 springs must not want to see you so unhappy. If they knew of this, they would definitely be angrier than you are. Fine, since Xianghe is injured and can't go to familial studies, I'm bringing you 2 out to walk the market tomorrow. Upon the siblings' return to the bamboo courtyard, Tang Yu went to see He Cheng. Tang Fan was just thinking of sending the Jinyi Wei to inquire after the progress of the Wei case, when Qian San'er happened to walk in from outside, his face full of mystery. Can you guess what I heard outside, sir? Tang Fan peered at him. No. Qian San'er grinned evilly. Try. Tang Fan smiled back. If I don't guess and you don't tell me, I'll get Yanli to suffocate you to death. Qian San'er was hit with defeat. Fine. I'll just say it. I heard that the Wei residence is haunted. The other paused in his tracks, attention successfully drawn. Qian San'er felt a little proud, at that. You can't guess why, right? There are several versions to this. One says that before Wei Sulhe made his name, he used to have a childhood fiancée, but in order to climb higher with a wealthy family, he took his former wife, Lady Zhang, and thus betrayed that fiancée. In resentment, the fiancée jumped into a river and killed herself. Right before her death, she made a vow in this life, you betrayed me for wealth, so in the next life, I will cut off your bloodline. He pinched his throat to finish imitating that swan song, ending it with, after that, a wisp of womanly soul turned into a fierce ghost, concealed inside the Wei residence, watching the Wei family all these years. All the girls being born had been that ghost causing mischief, and what do you know? Now, a male was just born yet died in the blink of an eye. I can tell that you're extremely talented. Qian San'er felt triumphant. Sure am. Don't look at anyone else, I'm the footman of the most intelligent person in the world, Master Tang. Tang Fan didn't have the strength to diss him for his brag. I heard that Biantian lacks a storyteller for its halls. Do you want me to recommend you for a try? No way. You definitely can't leave without me. A footman as loyal and capable as me is hard to find nowadays. Tang Fan couldn't resist kicking him. Enough. Get to the main point. A second version says that the Wei's current capital was all seized from someone else by Wei Sulhe, which he had used despicable methods to secure. After which he came to Xianghe County to start anew. Now, the one he killed has turned into a fierce ghost and come to take revenge, intending to cut off Wei Sulhe's familial line so that he regrets everything he's ever done. That's the reason why the Wei family are dying in succession. Why are they all fierce ghosts? Can't you come up with anything new? Yep. Something new Thurier is. He had dragged out his tone, but upon seeing that Tang Fan wasn't in any hurry, he could only continue. Wei Zhenliang's killer has been found. Tang Fan raised his brows. Chai Suo. Qian San'er thus became depressed. Eh? You already knew? Why'd you make me say it, then? Tang Fan shook his head. I only had a guess. Out of Chai Suo, Wang De, and Bao Yi, Chai Suo was just the most suspicious. Forgetting his former wish to flaunt his information, Qian San'er instead asked curiously, why? Wei Sul had clearly said himself that Wang De was the only one that had a grudge with him, while Chai Suo was on the best terms with him. Don't forget, I said previously that only someone pretty familiar with the Wei residence would have been able to find and kill her without alerting anyone else in such a short time span. Only Chai Suo matched up with that point. Qian San'er slapped himself on the forehead. Right, I almost forgot about that. Magistrate Wang asked as much too, as Chai Suo couldn't have done this alone. Purportedly, it was his younger cousin, Wei Sulha's primary wife, that had that pot of soup specially reheated, and after it was delivered, Chai Suo told Bao Yi that his cousin really hated Wang De and wanted to embarrass him in public a little. He then made a plan with him to bump into the pot at the table, promising him a heavy reward, plus having him help him lie around it. The magistrate interrogated that out of him immediately, though. Why did Chai Suo kill Wei Zhenliang? What hatred would he have against a little girl? Because Wei Sul had a son and they saw that he wanted to give him everything, Chai Suo and Lady Chai were unhappy, and thought to plot against him in order to steal his wealth. By ill coincidence, Wei Zhenliang had happened to pass by them. The two feared that their plot would be exposed early, so they struck first. Tang Fan shook his head. That was probably just their own guilty consciences talking, wasn't it? If she actually had heard them, wouldn't she have long started shouting, and wouldn't Wei Sul have not been clueless? Right, right. You are a sagely one. That's exactly the reason. Afterwards, Magistrate Wang also questioned Wei Sul and Wei Zhenliang's mother, and it was clear that Wei Zhenliang had never said a thing to them. This was clearly all the cousins' guilt that instead made them drop a rock onto their own feet. This case hadn't been complex to begin with. There were so many clues set out in the open, solving it had only been a matter of when. Tang Fan still had a concern about something else, however. What's the progress on the son's death, then? Following this incident, Wei Sul has a bone-deep hatred with the cousins and insists that they killed his son, but they refuse to admit to that. There seems to be no conclusion as of right now. I don't think they did it. Since Wei Sul was able to have a son, with that one dead, he could just have another one. There would be no use in that. All they wanted to do was plot against Wei Sul himself, so killing the son wouldn't have made a lick of difference. Qian San'er cocked his head. As they could do something as stupid as murdering Wei Zhenliang, they might have also had ample grounds to want the son dead. Tang Fan burst out laughing. You make sense, while I'm the one grasping at straws. Qian San'er was the type of person that would be able to open a dyeing shop if given only 3 different pigments, and he bloomed the second he heard Tang Fan's words. Oh ho ho, you saying that makes me so embarrassed. Could it be that I'm more intelligent than the most intelligent man in the world? The other glanced at him. When was I ever that? From now on, when we're on the road, don't say you know me. You'll make people beat me up. Qian San'er got in close with a stupid grin. But we're so familiar. Who in the whole of Xianghe doesn't know that I'm your old friend? You mustn't deceive yourself to deceive others. Tang Fan had no idea how to react to him. You've obviously got the thickest skin in the world. Who's your old friend? You're using words improperly. Your mouth is like a dog's butt letting out a bunch of farts. Ow, ow. Use your words, don't hit. Gentlemen move their lips, not their fists. End chapter.